Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Ayaradhamadabam Kunjabihari Ayaradhamadabam Kunjabihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, ISKCON Svanracharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Kantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Shri Shri Gaurani Tai, Jai Shri Shri Radha Govindandari Krishna Balaram Jaya, Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Can I just trouble someone that please put that light up? Just getting a bit blind as the ages go past. Oh, Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 27. I think we're up to. Understanding Material Nature is the name of this chapter. We're on verse number 4. Narayanam namaskritam narocharam narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nastapadeshu abadeshu nityam bhagavate sevaya bhagatam uttamashokya bhaktinashki. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. That's text number 4. Repeat after me, please. Atteya vidyamanepi samsritina nivatate jayato visayamasya swapnena tagamoyata atteya vidyamamoyata. Others, please. Ateya vidayamepi Sanshutina nivatate Jayato visayanashya Swapnena tagamoyata. Vaishnavis, please. Ateya vidyamanapi Samsutina nivatate Jayato visayamasya Swapnena tagamoyata Ateya vidamanepi Samsutina nivatate Jayato visayam Do the word for word. Please repeat after me. Ate, a real cause. I, certainly. Avidyamane, not existing. Api, although. Samshutihi, the material existential condition. Na, not. Nivatate, does cease. Yayataha, contemplating. Vishayan, objects of the senses. Asya, of the living entity. Svapne, in a dream. Anatta, of disadvantages. Agamaha, arrival. Yata, like. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Actually, this is, I guess, Lord Kapila speaking, right? Start of the yep. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Actually, a living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease, and just as in a dream, he is affected by all sorts of disadvantages. Repeat after me. Actually, a living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease. And just as in a dream, he is affected by all sorts of disadvantages. Purport. The example of a dream is very appropriate. Due to different mental conditions in dreams, we are put into advantageous and disadvantageous positions. Similarly, the spirit soul has nothing to do with this material nature. But because of his mentality of lording it over, he's put into positions of conditional existence. Conditional existence is described here as dhyaya to vishayamasya. Vishaya means an object of enjoyment. As long as one continues to think that he can enjoy material advantages, he is in a conditional life. But as soon as he comes to his senses, he develops the knowledge that he is not the enjoyer, for the only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, he is the beneficiary of all the results of sacrifices and penances, Bhaktaram Jagatapasam. And he is the proprietor of all these three worlds, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the actual friend of all living entities. But instead of leaving proprietorship, enjoyment, and the actual position as the friend of the living entities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we claim that we are the proprietors, the enjoyers, and the friends. We perform philanthropic work, thinking that we are the friends of human society. Someone may proclaim himself to be a very good national worker, the best friend of the people and of the country. But actually, he cannot be the greatest friend of everyone. The only friend is Krishna. One should try to raise the consciousness of the conditioned soul to the platform of understanding that Krishna is the actual friend. If one makes friendship with Krishna, one will never be cheated and he will get all help needed. Arousing this consciousness of the conditioned soul is the greatest service, not posing oneself as a great friend of another living entity. The power of friendship is limited. Although one claims to be a friend, he cannot be a friend unlimitedly. There are unlimited number of living entities and our resources are limited. Therefore, we cannot be of any real benefit to the people in general. The best service to the people in general is to awaken them to Krishna consciousness so that they may know that the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend is Krishna. Then this illusionary dream of lording it over material nature will vanish. Translation. And actually, our living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease, and just as in a dream, he is affected by all sorts of disadvantages. Om Ganati Vinandasya Ganam Ganam Salaka Sakshus Umidatam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Panchakapaturubhisha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you for coming to today's morning class. I respect all the seniors and the devotees here. Thank you for your kindness. So this is, I mean, in a sense, which we've been not disturbed. This first few verses of this chapter. I don't think any of us can probably even remember, right? It's been broken up with festivals and codices, and that's difficult to study the Bhagavatam in that fashion. The previous chapter was a very detailed analysis of the material nature by Lokapila, this Sankhya philosophy. And I always like to read, especially the last purports and the first purport of all chapters. If you ever read the Bhagavad Gita, you finish reading it, if you want a quick overview, because I normally like to read the Sanskrit, the translation and purports, it takes a while to get through it. But if you want a quick refresher, you read the first purport, all the English translation, the last purport of every chapter. Because Srila Prabhupada sort of introduces the chapter, you probably all notice this, and at the end he gives you a summary of that chapter, the essence of that chapter. So I'll just read you the last, because the last chapter was a very long chapter, it took us months to do. The last, I'll read you the last two sentences maybe, that'll be enough. Let's read the last. This is the last tiny little paragraph of the last purport of the last chapter. In the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, it is stated that one cannot become joyful by discharging devotional service. That doesn't make sense, does it? In the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, it is stated that one becomes joyful. I'm glad you're all listening. By discharging devotional service. In that joyful attitude, one can understand the science of God or Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it is not possible. So this is the summary. The analytical study of the elements of material nature and the concentration of the mind upon the super soul are the sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system. The perfection of this Sankhya yoga culminates in devotional service unto the Absolute Truth. So it's a nice summary of the Sankhya system. And I'll read you the first couple of verses of this chapter to bring one back to the third canto. Text number 1, the personality of Godhead Kapila continued. When the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of the modes, although abiding in a material body. Just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection on water text 2, when the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in material activities, and by the influence of a false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. That's what happens to us. Text 3, the conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with the modes of material nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work. So that brings us up to today's verse. So this is, we've got to remember the personalities that we've been exposed to in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Devahuti. Devahuti is not an ordinary woman of any kind, really. She's if you analyse her situation, her father, Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu is not just the Manu for this particular period. This is right at the very beginning of Lord Brahma's day, by the way. He's one of our Mahajans, isn't it? If you read the list of our 12 authorities on devotional service in the universe, Swayambhuva Manu is one of those 12. So he's not an ordinary Manu from that point of view. And his daughter is Devahuti. So look at the parents. Grandfather is Lord Brahma. Husband, Kadamba Muni, is the son of Lord Brahma also. And her own son is the Supreme Personality of God. So we can understand these extraordinary personalities, and Srila Prabhupada is exposing us to their teachings. So it's very important that we take all this detailed information to heart. In one of the lectures recently on Ekadashi, I think Srila Prabhupada was speaking on the last chapter, and he said, Krishna consciousness means details. So we're learning to surrender our lives to a Supreme Being, but who is He? What is He? All these things you need to know. To have a deep love, you have to have deep information about the Beloved. It's very, very important. So we don't just study these books just to fill in our time, because it's the time to do Bhagavatam class. We've got to take it to heart as much as we can, study it deeply. The Bhagavatam is very, very powerful. We sing that verse in the morning, Nashpadeshu Abhadreshu. The Abhadras are the things that trouble our heart, the nonsense in our heart, the conditioning, the lamentations, the wants, the hankerings, the disturbances. So, as a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave in 1976 in Vrindavan, he was speaking on the 5th canto, and during that lecture he quoted this verse, Nashpadeshu Abhadreshu. And he said, because that verse translates that almost all the things that are troublesome to the heart are removed, eradicated by hearing Bhagavatam, attending Bhagavatam class every day. But what does that mean? So Srila Prabhupada in that lecture actually he quantified it numerically. He said about 70% of the troubles in our heart can be eradicated simply by attending Bhagavatam class every day. It's pretty powerful. And then he went on and said, it means nishta, coming to that steady stage of devotional service. We're not up and down, become steadily practice Krishna consciousness, we become more fixed. You sort of get over the hurdles and anatta nivriti, all the difficult stages of devotional service that we go through. So this nishta is quite a way into the process, isn't it? If you go from Shraddha to Prem, what are we, 4 or 5 in, are we? Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anattavriti, Nishta. So yes, so we're 5 into the 9, then you've got Ruchi, Asakta, attachment, Taste attachment, or vice versa, and then Bhav. And then the last one, Prem, Bhavi on the sort of doorway of Prem. But that door gets open from the inside. You can't barge in. So the other ones you can sort of, through practice and mercy, and you can sort of stumble your way along. But that last one, and we see that even devotees who reach the stage of Bhav can fall down. We have examples in the Bhagavatam, and Bilvamangala Thakur in his previous life, and Bharat Maharaj, so on. So you can reach very high level, but once you reach Prem, once you're invited in, because Prem is by invitation only, the door is open from the inside of the spiritual world, and you're invited by the resonance to enter that realm. So it's very, very special. Once you're there, there's no coming back. That's the end of the game. So Srila Prabhupada in this Anyway, we're associating with these great personalities, and we have Vidura and Maitreya discussing, and Sukha speaking, and Sutta repeating, and Prabhupada giving his purports, and the commentaries, the acharyas are in there. We're saturated with transcendental association. It's a very, very important process. And if you analyse it, the 5 angas of devotional service, which are recommended out of the 64 by Srila Rupa Goswami as the topmost angas of devotional service, and Bhagavatam is one of those. The other 4 is chanting Hare Krishna, associating, worshipping the deity, and residing in a holy place. When you actually hear Bhagavatam, you're doing those 5 things at once. The beautiful lordships are being worshipped right now. We're witnessing the deity worship, the association of devotees. We've been chanting Hare Krishna. We're doing that as part of the class. And we're certainly in a holy place. This is non-different than Vrindavan, this very room we're in. What's the difference? And we're in Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is very powerful. So even though these verses have been very technical today, Srila Prabhupada, he likes this analogy of the dream. The example of a dream is very appropriate, because in the dream we don't actually do anything. We're just lying there like, almost comatose. But all this stuff's going on, and lamentations, and fear, and happiness, and these things. So similarly, the living entity is in a similar situation. We're sitting there within the region of the heart, but all these things that are going on aren't anything to do with the soul. It's all been filtered through all the subtle body, which we know is made of these 3 elements, the ego, the intelligence, the mind, and then further through the gross. And then we perceive through all those filters. So we get a really false sense of reality, and it has nothing to do with the soul. And especially the first one, this subtle, this mentioned in the purport, the ego is so powerful. It's a very subtle. It's somehow or other is able to cover the identity of the soul. Because if you related yourself as you really are, eternal pure spirit soul, eternal servant of Krishna, then you wouldn't be chasing your tail in this material world, trying to enjoy separately. The only way you can do it is if you get covered up and given a sense that you're something else, and that's the material body. I'm Australian, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a this or a cat or a dog or a fish. And then as you take on those personalities, then you try and enjoy through that facility. Very interesting, because we use the term and we enjoy Maya, isn't it? Let's enjoy Maya. Actually, Maya, I heard this in Mayapur many years ago. There might have been Jananivas was quoting I found a very nice point, so I'll repeat it. He said, actually, Maya is the chaste wife of Lord Shiva. Not possible to enjoy Maya. So what's going on then? Who's the predominating deity of false ego? As mentioned in the last chapter. Yes, Lord Shiva presides over false ego. So when you're enjoying Maya, it's actually Lord Shiva enjoying Maya, because it's going through that avenue of the false ego, and he's the predominating deity. So we're tricked at every turn in this material world, because it's not possible for the living entity to enjoy matter. As we always say, water and oil can't mix. You just have this dreamlike condition where we are doing all these things, but in actuality, it's all being carried out by material nature and higher energies. So this was also discussed in the previous verse, and Maharaj spoke on that. Srila Prabhupada quotes partly that verse in the purport from the end of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhuktaram Jagatapasham, Savaloka Meresham. He quotes the first 2 lines, and then Suridam, Savabhutanam Imam Shanti Ichati. This is a very famous verse. We've coined it the peace formula. It gets quoted a lot. But if you look at the history of ISKCON, when first it became promoted, you could say, it was back in 1966. You'll all be familiar with the story. It's in the Lilamrita and in Mukunda Maharaj's book. There was a gentleman by the name, his name Larry Bogart. He worked at the United Nations. This Larry got to know Prabhupada in those very early days, and he was instrumental in organising the incorporation of ISKCON. I think his name's even on the document. Anyway, so he invited Prabhupada. This is a time of turmoil in the United States and around the world. This is during the early days of the Vietnam War, with a lot of opposition for the young American boys and girls going to war and dying over there for no apparent reason. So there was a lot of, what do you call those? Discord, yes. And what do they do on the streets again? They protest. So I'm getting a bit brain dead as usual. That's just the nature. Remember, I got all those layers to get through. So this gentleman, Larry Bogart, invited Srila Prabhupada to organise a vigil at the front of the United Nations building. So Prabhupada was very happy because there was an opportunity to go and do some street chanting. So he told the devotees on Sunday, which was Sunday the 31st of August 1966, he said, we're not going to have our regular class, we're going to go down there. The devotees were a bit excited. The boys grabbed all the instruments, the Prabhupada's little drum and the tambura, and they jumped onto a bus, and Srila Prabhupada with a few devotees jumped into a cab and headed down. And then they started the chanting. Immediately they were stopped. They said that the organizer said, no, this is a silent vigil. We don't want any violent sounds or excitement to work the crowd up. So Prabhupada accepted the order and he sat down quietly and chanted japa with his devotees. Someone got up and spoke and invited Srila Prabhupada to speak, and he spoke very softly about peace, and he said, if we understand God is the proprietor and He's our friend, then we'll become peaceful. So this is, and a leaflet was made called the Peace Formula. It was based on that verse from the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Hence it became known as the Peace Formula. So that's the history. And again, Srila Prabhupada in the 3rd canto is utilising most of the purport speaking about this particular verse. And I'll just tell you the rest of the story because the Prabhupada spoke, they chanted japa for a couple of hours, and we ended up getting an article in the New York Post, and then Prabhupada invited Larry Bogart to come and he agreed to come to the centre and have some lunch with Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada was preparing this very wonderful feast. It was just him and Keith, and he told Stanley, don't let anybody in because I'm preparing a special lunch for Larry Bogart. And Prabhupada cooked a lot of wonderful. He cooked for about 3 hours, it's described. So, and you're not cooking quantities, you're cooking variety in that amount of time. And then in the meantime, this Larry Bogart turned up, and Stanley he said, I want to see Srila Prabhupada. Stanley says no. Prabhupada said no one can see him. So Larry stood there, then Stanley went and got him a fold-up chair. Half an hour went by, said, I want to see Srila Prabhupada. He said, no. Prabhupada said, nobody can see him. Prabhupada wanted to keep all the other young boys from coming up, because they in those very early days. This is the following month when ISKCON was first incorporated, and they just acquired this storefront. No one had even been initiated at this point. Now, when they went down for that the United Nations, they were just in their jeans and T-shirts and raggedy. I'll take that one. And then another half an hour, and then Larry said, look, I want to see Srila Prabhupada. And Stanley said no. So he got in a real huff and just left, He was really upset because he patiently waited for 1 hour. And Prabhupada really wanted to cultivate and thank this person. And after a while, Prabhupada started getting anxious. Where's Larry? And he sent Keith down there, he became Kirtananda. And Stanley, where's Larry? He said, I know there was some guy here, but he took off. And then he explained the situation, and word got to Prabhupada. Prabhupada was so furious. He called them all sorts of polite things. Polite, but fools and foolish, and specifically Stanley. He was so unhappy, and he went back. Could you imagine? He went to so much trouble to host this personality. And then, as far as I know, I've sort of looked into it, I don't think Larry ever showed up much after that. Might have been the end, because anyone know what happened to Larry? No, but anyway, he was there for that very early period of the movement, and he helped Srila Prabhupada, and he also helped to make that, I think that leaflet, he helped publish that leaflet, the Peace Formula, and thousands of those were distributed in New York. Like that. So it's a very important verse to know and possibly learn if you haven't learned it already. These three things, if you understand Krishna as a proprietor, he owns everything, right? He's the beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. Bhuktaram, Jagya, and Tapasyam. The sacrifices and the austerities. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Prabhupada says Sarvaloka Maheshwaram means also that he is a proprietor of all the demigods as well. Everything. He's the owner. Owns it all. We don't have any right to anything. This is all borrowed property by Krishna's grace. And Suridam Sarvabhutanam, he's the dearmost friend of all living entities. Very important. Prabhupada talks a lot about that in the purport. How Krishna is the only one that can actually be the friend of all living entities. And in one lecture, Prabhupada explains the Sanskrit terms for different types of friends. There's mitras, there's bandhus, and surit. By that, you might have heard those three things. I think there's a couple more. But a mitra is like a friend, but he's got a few motives, because you happen to have a car and you can grab a ride to the party with him. He's your friend. There's a bit of, And then bandhu is more of a social friend, like with you. What is your name, Mani Bandhu? What does that mean? Yeah, Mani Bandhu, what the money part stands for. But the Brahma Bandhu, I think Asvatthama is considered a Bandhu, friend of the Brahmas. Unqualified members of the caste system were also called Bandhus of that caste, because they were coined by that name. And then there's Surit. Surit means an actual well-wishing friend that'll do anything for you, especially at the time of need. They're there for you like anything, and that's Krishna. So Krishna is that type of friend. He's Suridam Sarvabhutanam, and he proves his friendship totally by accompanying us, the living entity, in every situation we get into. He never leaves us throughout our whole time in this material world. Millions and millions of lifetimes, and we've been in some pretty rough spots, you can imagine. 8,400,000 species of life, and some of them are horrific, very horrific. I mentioned this before, but it's just stuck in my mind. I saw years ago a bit of a documentary, and they were drilling through the ice in the South Pole somewhere, and they went like 30, 40 metres down. Can you imagine that? And there was a dark black ocean down there, water, and dark, And they put, obviously as we do, we put shoved cameras everywhere and lights. And there were some living entities floating down there. One of them, they put the camera on it, had the most ugliest, most envious looking face you could ever imagine. And we understand from studying this philosophy, to take birth in a situation, you've got to be pretty sad and sorry, because the fish are considered even lower than plant life. Why is that? Because it's based on hearing. Plants and trees, these trees are only the glorious. They get to hear the kirtan every day. You can go for a walk and chant to trees and bugs and birds and something. But fish, they're under the water. So that's why they're considered lower than plants. I asked one senior devotee once, if fish are lower than plants, why can't we eat fish? Why don't we eat fish? I said, I didn't want to eat fish. And he gave a simple answer, because you can't offer fish to Krishna. But karmically, fish are technically lower than plants because of that reason. So this thing is even lower because it's deep in the dark waters under the ice in the South Pole. You can imagine, and Krishna's there within his heart in that place, in that horrific, dark, cold, miserable place. So that's a real friend, right? Anyone want to go and live there? Why not? Too cold? Too dark? She's not a well-wisher, I'm sure. Well, I think others would debate that. So this is a situation of Krishna being a friend. The Prabhupada says very clearly, it's not possible for us to be the friend of everyone. The best thing we can do is introduce Krishna to everyone so they can remember the friendship they have with him, because that's the conditional state. We forget these three things, that Krishna is the beneficiary of all our activities and sacrifices. When Arjuna came to that realization, then he became glorious. He was able to perform that great austerity of killing his cousins and guru and grandfather. That's a very difficult thing to do, but because he did it and for the benefit, for the pleasure of Krishna, then it was very purifying and wonderful. So if we can remember those things, that Krishna owns everything, Sarvalokameshwaram, he's the Yagnatat Kamadro Yatra, where's it go? Kamasam. I don't chant that verse for years. Lokoyam Banda Sambanda or something. Anyway, excuse me, the sacrifice, Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, has to be performed, otherwise we become bandhana. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. We become bound, tied up. And what do we get tied up to? Birth and death, repeated birth and death. And you're always chasing your tail, flickering happiness which the soul cannot touch. Even though we hanker for it, we want it, it's just, you can't grab it. It's a bit like watching a movie, you You see all the things, but you can't jump into the movie and get into it. Start driving the fast car and leave them through the air. You can't do that. So you can only witness, like it says in this verse. So it becomes frustrating. So through cultivating this transcendental knowledge, it's very important to understand that Krishna is our friend, well-wishing friend, and he'll do anything for us, and he's waiting for us. He doesn't interfere with our, say if he's our friend, but he just pick us up and bring us to the temple every day and shove our beads in our hands and give us a slap on the back of the head. Get on with it, mate. I don't think he speaks Australian. Maybe he speaks all languages. He speaks the languages of all animals as well. So he speaks Aussie too, mate. We think. A bit of liberal speculation there. But he's not that type of friend. He's not. He's there for us. He's witnessing, directing. He says in the 18th chapter, I direct the wanderings of all living entities. That means all living entities. That means the birds when they go on their pilgrimage, when the hell they know where they're going. They're all lined up like in position, but they know where they're going because Krishna is directing them. How else can they know? So he directs us, and according to our desires and our wants and our karmas, he will arrange things. But as soon as there's an inclination that we have any desire to spiritual desires, then he becomes very interested. Right? And that's why it's very important. It says here, Prabhupada, we have to distribute this Krishna consciousness. When you go out chanting on the streets, Krishna hears that sound vibration in the heart, and living entities in that same heart, and that's when the dialogue begins. Did you hear that? Krishna starts nudging the living entity because we've been interfered with by the Vaishnavas. We interfere in people's lives, don't we? They're all going that way in their material existence, and then the Haris come along. And it creates a reaction in the consciousness which then progresses. This is the very beginning of the spirit. So Prabhupada says this is the real friend of the living entities. He disturbs their temporary material existence, which is a dead end. Because basically I've mentioned this before, material life was just driving down dead-end streets and going, oh, God, this again. But Krishna consciousness teaches us to go directly to Krishna and avoid all the sidetracks. So this is Krishna consciousness, what's being taught and presented here. And because the Ahutis ask very wonderful questions, we'll get into here all this extraordinary philosophy. And this chapter is going to be more about the living entity than perhaps the last one. The last one explained how everything develops. It's quite extraordinary. I don't know if anyone can remember those 72 verses, but if you do get time, just read through it. It's Prabhupada's translations of these complex verses and purpose are mind-boggling. It's just fascinating to read and important. It is still a type of, Jnana Mishra Bhakti at this stage that we're going through. With the Bhakti is there for, tagging alongside it. Eventually we come to pure Bhakti. But this is what's been taught here. Everything that we do for Krishna. And Lord Brahma, says there's a verse in the Padma Purana, which I often quote when I'm talking about cows. Lord Brahma speaking to Narada Muni, he says at the very beginning of creation, there's 4 things that were put into place. He said if these 4 things weren't put into place, the whole universe would have gone to ruination. And those 4 things are the Vedas, right? The information, fire. What's the fire for? To start bushfires? No? 4 things. Or is it? What did you say? Yeah, to keep warm. Cook dinner. I haven't said cows yet. I'm still at the second one. I'm being silly. Shouldn't be silly in Bhagavatam class. Krishna sometimes can be funny too. So it's the Vedas. He said if the Vedas, fire, cows and Brahmins. He said if I hadn't established those 4 things at the very beginning, the whole universe. So this is the foundation. This Bhaktaram Jagdapashanam, they perform this jagya for the satisfaction of the Lord. And by doing so, then everything is peaceful and provided for. So this is what's being taught here today. If you want happiness, you have to offer everything to Krishna. Remember that Krishna is the beneficiary of everything. He owns everything and he's our friend. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. If you don't have to worry about owning things, life becomes peaceful because it's hard work trying to own things and keep them and maintain them. But we do so as gifts from Krishna, and we look after them for him. You know, we look after our car so we can drive to the temple, we can do service for Krishna. These bodies, we look after them so we can serve. We put them down at night time like little babies and put them to sleep so they can have some rest, so they're fresh again the next day to serve. So we start to see everything in relation to Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. And this way you become happy and you achieve real peace. There's no question of peace, it was said earlier. There's no question of happiness without peace, excuse me. Isn't it? Yashashta vidyam uchuja vatate kamakarata. There's that verse at the end of the 16th chapter of the Gita. Nasidina vapnoti nasukam na param gatim. If you disregard all this, that Krishna is all these things, and act according to your own whim, Krishna says, neither attain perfection, nasidim na param gati, nasukam, no happiness, no param gati, nor the supreme destination. So if we disregard what's been taught to us and given to us by Srila Prabhupada, this is anybody, then happiness is not reachable. And if we take it on, accept this knowledge and put it into practice, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitamidam Uttamam, Pratakshagamam Dhamam, isn't it? Susukam Katamavayam. Krishna says this is the king of all education and gives you this prataksha. Prataksha means direct perception of the self. And susukam katamavayam is joyfully performed. So if you want peace and happiness, it's that we've been given the formula, the peace formula, the formula for peace. It's not a complicated process, not like previous ages we had to meditate like Devahuti's husband, Kadama, for, what was it, did he meditate for 10,000 years? That's a long time, isn't it? And some of these yogis used to meditate underwater, under cold water for a long time, or around in the heat of summer surrounded by fires. Very, very austere. Dhruva Maharaj, his meditation was insanely austere. But we don't have to do that. We simply have to chant, dance, and take prasadam. The process is not complicated, but still, like Prabhupada used to say, what is the difficulty? Still we find that difficult somehow or other. So that's the process of Krishna consciousness being given to us. We're very blessed, and more can be said, but the time is running out. So if anyone wants to say something or comment or correct on this verse, now's your chance.
Prabhu, just related to when Prabhupada was out front of the United Nations and he followed the order of what the people there wanted to do. I found it interesting because one might think that he would just say, well, no, you know, chanting's transcendental, they get benefits, so let's just chant loudly. But he actually kind of...
Grab the wampus.
Yeah. He just went along with kind of, you know, what the general social situation of the society wanted. So I was just wondering, how do you kind of divine how much, because it's also related to just the very last thing you said too, because we just say it's chanting, dancing and feasting, but we understand that actually we have to spread and give to others, otherwise we don't get it ourselves, and that can be a very difficult thing for many people because you kind of, like you said before, we kind of interrupt people's lives. And so how to use your intelligence, or what do you just pray to know where to interfere and where to go along with what society's expectations are, and can you say something about that?
Yeah, so the first thing you spoke about, Srila Prabhupada, what he did was excellent, because actually he created respect and appreciation. He still chanted, might not have been loud, but if he would have gone against the advice, it would have created a lot of bad PR for the movement. And instead of getting a favourable article in the newspaper, which we got, it could have been, something completely opposite. So Srila Prabhupada was expert in time, place and circumstance. And that's the business. And Prabhupada writes that Krishna is in our heart. He tells us, he directs us what to do when in the right situation. We pray. We're not on our own. You have to remember that Krishna is guiding us. And we have to listen to that particular voice, because there's quite a few voices going on in our heads. I'm not saying that we're loopy, but we've got our mind. Prabhupada explained the mind is a particular type of voice. Then there's the intelligence, is another type of voice, has more reasoning and can defeat the mind, especially if it's steeped in this transcendental knowledge. That's why it's very important to we learn the philosophy clearly because that's what's going to overcome our mind, because you'll turn to the intelligence. Intelligence is dumb, hasn't learnt anything, and you'll go, yeah, that sounds good, let's do it. Let's drink this, let's go there, let's whatever. But if the intelligence is highly trained, it's going to tell you, no, this is not very good for your spiritual life, doesn't please the Lord, bus, And so there are these, so you have to listen to these voices, and there's the soul itself, and there's the super soul Krishna, who sometimes interpret as intuition. Prabhupada writes in the 18th chapter of the Gita, if you think Krishna is speaking to you, then if you're not sure if it's a super soul or some other voice, then you confirm with the spiritual master. So that's why the system at ISKCON, you can always check with someone if you're not sure whether I should pull out the wampas during a silent vigil or not.
Or if you just try a certain strategy of preaching and it doesn't sort of work, then you just...
That too. Now, if you remember here, preaching is a very broad term. Sometimes we think you've got to be physically putting a book in someone's hand and you're preaching, otherwise you're not preaching. That is a front line, that's a tip of the arrow, you could say. But everything, especially in New Government, is very, very unique. There's so much preaching here. So many people come here all the time. And we're giving them prasadam, and they're attending kirtan, and we're interacting with them, they're doing service with us. So we're preaching constantly here. Cleaning the temple nicely is first-class preaching, because the guests come, they go, wow, this place is special, it's clean, it's beautiful. But if it's just left untidy and messy, and then that has a different effect on people. So preaching is a consciousness rather than an activity, because you can be out there and be in total maya in the name of preaching, and vice versa. So it's just, and certainly don't take the glory away from the devotees that go out, because it's not an easy service to go out book distribution day in, day out, and Harinam on the streets, but that's our frontline preaching. But we have, like you say, many other avenues of preaching. Sorry, we're running. Did you want to say something quickly? I think Money Bone did. Sorry to go over, didn't mean to.
It was just, seem to remember in Prabhupada Litamrita, Prabhupada commented after that United Nations vigil, said basically it's a waste of time, because if we can't do kirtan, there's no point us being here. So whilst there was some benefit, newspaper article, etc., he said without kirtan it's a waste of time.
Okay, but they did chant japa, they were all chanting japa. So it wasn't loud, yeah, it was soft. Yeah, but anyway, sometimes you have to compromise. Thank you. Prabhu? So if you need to go, you're welcome to go, yeah? That's one.
Haribol. Just coming back to the story about Stanley, and it seems like an excellent, example of not understanding the purpose of the Guru. And we know that story, you don't pick up everything that falls from the horse, and he picks up. The question I have is, now in our society there's a lot of people taking one side or the other, that, Prabhupada said this, but his purpose was this. And so the question is, how do we differentiate that? And we see in that case, Stanley heard, Swamiji said, don't let anyone in. So I don't let, so that, you might say, fanatical acceptance of that instruction without a deeper understanding of the purpose. How do we differentiate that?
With great practice. I mean, to be fair, Stanley was a particular case, I can remember, if you read on this, because this is coming from Satsvarupa Maharaj's writing, Stanley, soon after they came to Prabhupada, asked him for money, for $50. Do you know that story? Huh? And he said, what do you want, $50 for? I want to buy some gasoline, I want to light myself on fire. So this sort of characters Prabhupada was dealing with. So he called Bruce, which is Brahmananda, who was a treasurer. He says, Stanley wants $50. Brahmananda said, we don't have $50. So that was the end of that one. And plus, in those days, I think a gallon of gasoline was 35 cents, $50. But anyhow, Srila Prabhupada called Stanley's mother after that. I think he was considered a bit crazy. Anyway, that's that particular person. How do we know what the order of spiritual master is in essence? Is that what we're more or less asking? Yes. Yes. So I mean, there's a level of politics in what you're saying in that example, but we have the rights and the left, we have the liberals, the conservatives, and we're a big society now. You're wanting a particular answer from me. That's right. Yep. Yeah, the details can be adjusted, but the principles remain. That's our philosophy. So, and you're talking about devotees in different parts of the world, different cultures, different upbringings. So there's going to be various types of influences. Depends who you hang out with. Depends what you read. If you're all over social media, you're going to get. I'm fortunate. Never ever been on Facebook. I've never had my own Facebook account. And yeah, it's just if you read Prabhupada's books, it's pretty hard to get deviated, and try to remain humble. Not to think that we know better than somebody else, because we don't know. At least in my case, we don't know a lot. All we know is what Prabhupada's given us, so we can't even be proud of that. It's just we're beggars. So you got to use. Krishna Rupa said you got to use intelligence. You got to refer to Shastra and time, place, and circumstance and experience. And if you don't have the experience, then you take advice from experienced devotees that you trust. That's what I would say on that. That's fair enough. Should we stop now, because I know breakfast has to be consumed. Thank you very, very much for your time, and apologise for the lateness. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.
This one. Hey, they haven't started the charge yet. They keep still coming up. They made me use. They made me use. What does it mean? Tai Chi. Oh. They just keep telling me, I don't need all those videos. So I don't know whether someone was listening. Right. They always listen.
Krishna Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram.
That's very good. Amazing. That's really good. His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhu Pada. You got it. Mahandacharya International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Yeah. Should know that. So he was the teacher who brought these teachings of Bhakti. Yoga, the physical side, and Bhakti is the devotional side. So it's connecting you together. Devotion to whom? Devotion to Krishna. And 1967, it was him, almost 70 years old. He became on Akash, went to India to only had something like $7 or $8 so pretty much $7. And trunk full of books which he was translating from Sanskrit to English. And he did this because he was given a mission by his teacher, that's his teacher. And he told him you should share this knowledge in English. This language was actually was mainly Sanskrit, which was spoken and written, and people outside India do not know about this tradition. Like not everybody knows yoga, the physical side. Yoga is coming from ancient India, and different mantras and the Vedic knowledge. Do you know Ayurveda? ancient Ayurveda. So Ayurveda also is an ancient science and medicine, originating from India. And if you open the Ayurvedic text, it's all Sanskrit. So at some stage, somebody has translated it from Sanskrit to English, and this is how we have access to this knowledge. Same thing with Bhakti. This knowledge was restricted, but he took the mission because he would translate these ancient texts from Sanskrit to English. So if you walk up there, all these books which you see. These were books which you see. That's the English pronunciation, which he did, and he translated from word by word translation, and then full translation. And then we also did a more detailed. So this is the Oriental part 2. Part 1, part 2, part translated to so it's a lot of it's huge. Even when he was about to pass away, I was like on his deathbed, he was still translating using a diploma. If you're coming from India and if you don't have any language, Hindi is a more watered down version of Sanskrit. So, for example, I grew up in India, so
Hindi or from?
Sanskrit is the same. It's the
Yeah,
same,
but because in India there are lots of languages.
Yeah.
So this is the most similar to.
Sanskrit is also the original language from all the other languages, including the European languages. They say Sanskrit and Latin. And my wife is from Germany. When I was there last time, I noticed a lot of the German words, like immediately those connections. And then when I was researching the finance, so this is like the root of all languages. And it's also the most ancient language. And it's mentioned in scriptures that this language was also spoken in the higher planets, and in other planets. So the aliens speak Sanskrit. So yeah, there you go. So he did all the translation, and now because of what he did, we have access to this knowledge in English. You don't have to understand Sanskrit, you just read the book. And that's how we have all these temples and ponds around the world. And there's a farm in France. So yeah, so if you have time, every day 7:30 in the morning, we for example, what does it say? Bhagavatam. So this is spoken every day here in the temple, and we have speakers come in and they read the verse, they read the translation, and then they go deeper into explaining the verse for people who want to understand. Sometimes even the pulpit is like, whoa, what is he saying? So they make it easier for us. You have to understand this was not written, but it was spoken in a previous age. Who wrote it? Sukadeva Goswami, if you read over this is the Bhagavatam is basically a conversation between Maharaj Parikshit, who has 7 days to live. He's been cursed to die in 7 days. And he's coming for answers like what do I do? What do I do with my time? Do I do charity? Do I do something which is philanthropic? And then they're having a conversation, and then he's saying that all you have to do is hear and understand your real position and who you are, and use your time to connect with the spiritual world and go back home. Don't worry about your temporary body, which is also going to die in 7 days. And because other than giving solutions, maybe you should do this to counteract the curse to stay longer. You know, we're all trying in this world, right? To live longer, you know, eternal life.
Similar to the Bhagavad Gita, it's a conversation between Krishna and
Yeah, so the Bhagavad Gita is a very conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And this conversation is basically to understand who Krishna is and who we are and our connection with the divine. So basically, what's the purpose of our lives here? Make money, have some fun. So this is where it's been discussed, and it goes into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And there's also other spiritual leaders who are sitting and listening to this conversation, believing they are getting to hear this. Actually, before the conversation starts, everybody's trying to give them a solution. Maybe do this. This is how you can counteract your curse. You know? And then they go to the person who's the most mature, the most spiritually elevated. And whenever when he comes, everybody takes a subservient position, like egotism from the, you know the word SME, subject matter expert. That's like a technical term. He's like considered to be the most elevated spiritual being. Almost looks like something kind of
Yeah, what?
I think that is hard to.
Yeah. So James Cameron take a lot of inspiration from the ancient Vaishnava texts, these texts, and sort of like look at them. And the markings on the forehead, so there's a lot of correlation there. But why is Krishna, why is Krishna? Well, Krishna chooses, he likes to. He is the transcendental Lord. So he likes to be in his darkish, bluish form. And if you look at the pictures here, you see that he's sort of particular form. That's him coming in the form of a child. And that's, again, it's if you're from Christian tradition, you see Mother Mary and Jesus. What's happening there? What's happening there? So Krishna has come in the form of a boy, a baby boy. And what's happening is he's actually experiencing the love which his mother has for him. And he's coming to taste this love. And it's all about relationship. So bhakti is about devotion, or having a connection with this person. So whatever we are doing here at the temple, including the part now, is actually that having that connection.
Is it coexistence of Christ, Son of Krishna?
No,
So that
it's connected. Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And sometimes people think about it in religion. But actually, Prabhupada mentions Christ so many times in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So there's a lot of correlation between what Jesus was teaching and the Vaishnava tradition, the Christian tradition. It's not. In fact, he'd say that, he also said many times that we follow Christianity more seriously than Christians. Because you know the Ten Commandments, it says, thou shalt not kill. And he was criticizing the Christian priests. He says, you don't even follow your own tradition. It says, thou shalt not kill. Where it means not to kill.
It doesn't say the commandment that you kill persons in the world, it's written in it. And it's technically to all living being.
you don't see this.
Don't you?
Yeah.
This is pretty good. On the other hand, if you go deeper, this is where the question answers come. We have the major rule. If somebody comes to attack you, including a human, and it says there are four whatever's within your power.
Yeah.
You do it. Even if you cross the road, what do? You look to the right, to the left, you tick, 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 and then you do it. You know, it's like, whatever. So we always bending ourselves, you know, so it's using the intelligence. What was your name?
Serena.
And Asha.
Is it to
Because what happens is there's some people who come from the farm who have they have to be careful, otherwise they get very lost. So you have to keep it low, 100 and 2 and 3 is fine. Beyond that, we have to. We also use speakers, we use amplifiers. So
The symbols are very
yeah, mine counts plus 3 points, which is very rare. And also because it's like maybe the acoustics are the best things. Let's go across. Do the same thing. You start this way. The reason why we do it serene, why do we do it sideways? Well, technically speaking, hands are like this. But if you do it like this, then the feet they come towards each other. Just consider to be more very polite. That's why we do it sideways. And the intention is we are paying our respects to deity of Krishna, the statue of Krishna. And the same thing with Prabhupada, we went and paid respects to him first. We always get respect to the teacher first because of him, or because of his endeavor we are here now. Otherwise, without him, we don't have access to this knowledge. So we always give our respects and we're grateful for his teachings. Maybe you don't understand what he's done, but the fact that we're all here, for whatever reason, just coming for yoga or just coming for a break, we've come here because it has been facilitated somehow. We're here. So we always for that privilege. So again, sideways, this next to me, you can do it simultaneously. Anything come closer, that's fine too. Yes, you know. Nice. Tutsi is holy battle. One of the last and she's considered chief, feminine energy. Like in her father time, we experienced with George. And you have Tutsi, who's actually the personification of bhakti. Bhakti devotion also takes the form of eternally, and Krishna said you can take this form, and I will always accept your service. So what we do is, as people followers of this tradition, we always wear Tulsi. It's not shoes. Did you see the Tulsi? So these are Tulsi beads. So we wear these on our heads. And this is basically the bark. So the Tulsi passes. We use the bark to make wood, which is again used for beads. So these goals is on our neck, and then you have the chanting beads, which also are beads. TULSI. Use as T, but he traditional respect. We don't really take T. We might have a leaf or two in the everything that we eat has other fruits. So Krishna does not accept offerings which has no fruits. So there's some conditions there. So if you offer some, say, fruits and veggies or whatever, you have to put it to make it offerable to Krishna. So don't you the body as you came, you add the fruits to the chip. That's just water. So, what do that time? Right time. Yeah, what you do first is they put some water in your hand, and tell you that's going to rinse your hands, and your hands touch your hands. So the circling around is also a part of bhakti devotion. By doing that, you're all honoring Tulsi. Usually we touch Tulsi, so either you touch Tulsi or surround it, go around. And you also sing prayers, which you probably did. Or took part in singing. So Tulsi is very special because she is able to connect you to Krishna and she grants you bhakti. She's like the agent with bhakti is devotion. Devotion, love for Krishna. So here in this world, and that love is manifested in usually love between, a man and his partner. Now there's many ways it can happen. So usually man and woman, or then a lady and her child, a lady, a man and his parents. So there's different kinds of relationships in this world. And if you don't have it, that's not there, or usually it's there, so you're often, but still you have somebody like a nurse or somebody taking care. And then at some stage you have friends, so that love is connected to your friends. And at some stage you understand more of the geography. Oh, I'm Italian, so my country, that's extended to your nation. Or somebody says, I'm from South America, extended to your continent. Or if you're a particular race, if you're black skin, so I'm a black man, my brothers, or if you're, you know what I'm saying? So that love is now extended. It's still limited because love is meant to be unconditional. And love is also meant to be Krishna, divine, and this is where the teachings of bhakti comes in. So what's your object of love? Who do you love? You say, oh, I love my girlfriend, or my wife, or I love my children. And if you start asking this question, it starts to expand the intelligent person. And that's why our love, which we innately have, is meant to be, yes, you can love your country or your partner. I love my car, country, anyway. So there are people who actually have seen them. Bullshit cars, so something else. So yeah, this love is meant to be directed towards Krishna. Krishna, as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is like, what did we just do? Why not here? So Krishna is like the root. So you offer water to the roots. So the love which we already have also has to be directed towards Krishna. And everything that you've done there, bowing down, watching, looking, hearing, smelling, and you already tasted the food of Krishna. So you're already taking bits and pieces of this love. You actually already, just by being here, you stand. So everything which we have, this material is used in this function. And that's the teaching of God. We just focus on the ones here. Alright? Alright. also, for us in today's day and age, we have already connected to Krishna through the teaching. Because of what he did practically to take this to the Western countries. So we have some strong connection now with teaching his. Because without him, we will be. So all these personalities are guided towards Krishna. And she is considered to be more powerful than Krishna because she, Hare, comes before the you asked me all the questions about the Durga, the goddess, and Kali. So she's the fountainhead of everything. She's the original mother, the divine. So she's the original, the originator. The family. We connect to Krishna through. You go to Vrindavan, which is a very sacred space, basically. Nobody says Krishna, they also Radhe, Radhe, Hare, Hare. She's considered to be the queen. In India, it's about 2 hours from there. It's called Vrindavan, the place where Krishna was born. It's amazing adventures. So we go on pilgrimage every once a year. Even the local rickshaw, tuk-tuk guys, everybody in the shops. That's actually Krishna's mother. That's Yashoda. Her name is Yashoda. Yashoda, yes.
Yeshua.
The highest connection to Krishna is actually through Radha, Mahara. And there's other, again, very elevated, but this is considered to be the highest. But you also have the love between Krishna and his mother, so that's what this relationship which we have. There's 5, 6 versions. One is the love between the mother and the child. One is Krishna being a friend. One is Krishna being a lover. One is Krishna being in a neutral position. So he's neutral. So there's different aspects of this love. And then as I mentioned, the high stages that for the one love between Radha and Krishna. So it can go with it goes like just like you have a what do you call this? Like telescope. It goes deeper Radha is Hare. Yes, Radha is Hare, Hare is Radha. The later reception is Radha. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And on the left is the lady where it's Rasara. That's how I. And Rasarami is another name for Krishna. For Radha. Rasa means rasa means juice, or the juice of relationship. Rani means queen. The queen of relationships. So that's the rasa. So it's all connected to. So the general ladies are all connected to the spiritual their name. Connected to Radha, and the men usually get connected to Krishna. In the last Rasa, Queen,
Statues?
Oh, you like to know? Yeah. Is this good enough so far? Yeah. Okay. So this is something bigger. So let's come here. So you have to tell me which one is Krishna. Why not? Yeah, that's good. None of
agree? Yes, basically. So one way to see Krishna is his skin as a flute and also as a tip of the right? Right. Okay, that's a good question. Why water? Yeah. There's nothing that we're not. I like to look up to this wall. He's actually touching the base of the mountain. So what's happening is there's an interesting story where there's the village has water, lots of rain, much rain. And in fact, why it's rain so bad is the villagers have defended Thor. Who's Thor? The good one, nice one. Indra. So Indra is the original Sanskrit name. So the poor village people have somehow not neglected to worship Thor. He was very angry. And he sent units on the boat. He sends the biggest the cloud of destruction of the song about the cloud. This is just give them some hard lessons. So this cloud pouring down into the village. A lot of things wet and cold. And there was Krishna. And Krishna is the one who actually initiates this whole story. He's the one who tells them to neglect the worship of God. And anyway, this whole story. So they come back to Krishna and start complaining, like, you told us, like, you don't want to worship God, and look what's happened. So, oh, Krishna, that's what you have. So there's a huge mountain in the village. And he goes towards the mountain, you see this little boy. The mountain. And he tells them, this amazing, supernatural, superhuman pastimes, adventures. So that's what's happening there. And this barn is actually called, is named after this village. This barn is called Govardhan. That's the village. So that same story is so Krishna's holding as the literal Govardhan. Gold also, the gold means house, Vrinda means the one who is the house, Govardhan means the mountain which sustains the cows. Because in the whole mountain you have grass and water, different colors, and constantly eat these colors of grass and drink this water. So this mountain is called the sustainer of cows. It's a sacred mountain, just like you see sacred. So in India, what happens? What you can trade, you catch on the mountain. In India, they have this whole we still focus on that. After that, actually, so you can actually walk around the mountain. And so at any given time, you could not say, go with them today. Just like Delhi, you catch another taxi, go to go. And you see pilgrims walking around any given time, 24 hours. Somebody, this groups of people walking around. And especially if it's a very sacred day, then you see thousands of people. So it's amazing. And when they walk around the mountain, they also, it's done in a eventually, I want to get that job, I want to get that. And I started Christmas, the blessings from Krishna. And then they say, you know what, I'm going to do this walking around. So I get this material desire. And that's also fine. We all have material desires. And they say, even if you have material desires, still approach Krishna. Because it's Krishna is like a one-stop shop. No, it's because Krishna is very kind and he understands people have desires. And he knows it's not just desires. Yes, but you can purify your desire by offering it to Krishna. So for example, you buy a nice car. So, and the car can be used to Krishna service. By taking people on tour. I'm not using my phone, I use my laptop. Everything that we have in this world, everything which is material, can be used spiritually. And that's the best use of it. You see, if you look at the back, you have a microphone. The microphone is used to purify, to read, to sing the devotional songs. I just came back from the rock actually home. We went to these places to keep that. So we used Kala, we used Ola, we used Facebook, we used Instagram. Can all be updated. It's not a way. So that's where the beauty comes in bhakti. Everything can be used, including your desires. Is that good? On the left is actually not Radha, it's actually Krishna's brother, Balaram. And if you look over here, you see the two boys here. Krishna is in the yellow and the blue is Balaram. So there Krishna is having, what do you call that's the word. That's the word. Yes. Oh, it's Balaram jealous? That's a good one. Yeah. The reason why we're here, that's a good one. Yeah. The reason why we do this work, because at some stage, we have envy. We are jealous. You see, I don't know, I see another person who has more facilities than you, or a lady who's, I've seen this sometimes with a lady, but they see another lady, there's some rivalry there, maybe she's more beautiful or whatever. So there's this jealousy, envy. So because we have envy in us, or we, at some stage we have to show up, but when envy comes in, then this world is designed for us. So we are here because we have towards each other and also towards. So bhakti is meant to help us to overcome this envy of ourselves, others, and the Supreme Person. And also, basically, this was a design for us to engage in our enviousness. We can be jealous as much as we want, but once you learn the lessons, that's where the bhakti gets there. So that's the cause of our detour into this world. Detour to and that's why bhakti is all about giving. And in this world, it's all about me, myself, and I. What about my job? What about my partner? What about my dog, my car, my country? My country is better than your country. It also extends in mainstream religions. My God can be like your God. Have you seen? Yeah. Jesus is, or you're a Christian, or I'm atheist, or I'm Muslim, I'm a Jew, I'm born, whatever it is. You see what's happening. So this is child, this is very foolish. then you're on the right path, and you also have to share this knowledge with others. You can go back home yourself, go back to home and assist back home, spiritually. Yeah. But that's good, but what's better? Why don't you take your friends? Why don't you take your family? So this Bhakti tradition is meant to. Envy means, I see Asha, I'm working in a company, I'm just saying, I was come back, I said all the time. Somebody comes up the ladder. What did she do to get that position? Or she might be sucking up to the boss, or whatever. There's all this, office politics which goes on. And as soon as they get a few $100 more than you, like they say, oh, why did they get the position? I don't know. That's basically envy. So it's evident. Non-envy is actually really happy. If somebody is doing progress, what happens? You have, say, for example, you have a son. Your son achieves, becomes, successful in his academics. He becomes number one in his class. I don't know, swimming or whatever. Like, as a father, what do you feel? You feel envy? You feel pride. But you see your neighbor's son coming, then there is some neighbors. I've seen that also within okay. So in spiritual circles, you see somebody progressing in bhakti, then you actually have to put them on a higher platform. You actually never take credit, you always pass on credit. So the teachers were like this, he never took credit for what he did. He always said, I'm doing this because of my teacher. He always pass on credit. Spiritually, we always pop others up. In the material world, you know the word is called 12 coffee. Anybody becoming better than you? Spiritual life, it's the opposite. Anybody who's better than you, you actually serve them. You take a subservient position. So this tradition is all about serving. That's why we say the word Krishna, Das, the servant of Krishna. So we always have the name, the word Das behind the word Krishna. I said my wife invites me to Rasalani. So in other words, she's actually the queen, the same name as Radha. She's not Radha, she says Rasarani, Dasi. So she's a servant of Radha. Yes. Sure, thank you.
Thank you for sharing the knowledge.
No worries. I'll see you again. Hope that makes sense.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Get to our
Yeah.
so feel free to come. Ring the bell. And you want to ring the bell all the time. There's people inside. Just watch the. We came in because there's nobody. Just like if you have a house, flat.
No.
You have a tent here? Or you have a roof? So I decide to come in tomorrow. I'm just going to walk. That's one aspect. Hey, I'll let you go. Krishna, by the way, everybody is touching. So review this small energy. inspection, then we go back home to the spiritual world. Sorry, you want us to read?
Not at all. No, I'm not talking. I'm just thinking.
You're just thinking. So what happens is when we go back home, Krishna, the great mind, he actually, we now at the same time, so Krishna, we all become. Of course, there's a power relationship, where we become formatted forms. Lots of three things which is so return, look up, and this. What's that? Love knowledge. This. So we are actually, if you don't understand Krishna, then we are temporarily, only here for a few days, go back, temporary situation, and we put something up, it's teeth problems. I fix it. No, it's complex. We can. So, no, I suffer yesterday, I suffer also. For lack of knowledge, but also something. And for knowledge of this, last night I was actually two months. Just, and back night's rest, and I'm sure the title of the state. So yeah, I have myself.
I can do the floating outside today.
So that was my
Yeah, I know. I want to because last
Oh,
night I
okay.
couldn't work because everyone was here. They were doing the house. I think I'm doing it express. Yeah. What did you think? What did you do? Yeah, no, I want to. Yeah. Thank you. That's okay. I usually do that. I think we did a crew on Sunday. I've got to do it on Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah. Because Jake yeah.
See, mainstream,
I mean,
are very much
in between.
in fact, the only religion which comes close to is the Lord Jesus. All the rest are very crude. Very elegant, very basic. All of this is covered atheism. That's all that is. Nothing is. So it's yes, it brings you to a certain level. And that's why Buddhism spiritually, even basic aspects of Buddhism, now it's something's non-violence. And now on stage, even the basic element of Buddhism is even the Buddhist lies are Buddhism is more broader umbrella They know about Krishna. They don't necessarily know about his as a supervisor. Because they just understand the Bible supervisors. So we can't see that they are illusion. It's like as if you're not here for the real thing. You will get something which is looking for pure gold to find it. Looking for achievement which is possible. That's what looking for. Possible. Okay. So because in this world, we don't have sincere spiritualists. And you get a lot of pseudo spiritual stuff. You get some old school, you get some yes, but it's compromised. So much people, so much Krishna told people oh, he's a sure. Krishna is the greatest Krishna. You might think I'm just something somehow so you'll be tricked and oh, that's a big sense. I'm all man. So like this. Of course, in the transcendent and spiritual the intentions. So yeah, Krishna is beautiful like Krishna altogether. What's happening there? He's not standing straight. He's like this. His knees, his knees bent, and his hips on the side, and his shoulder. So he's playful, and he's acting a lot of people come just even a person who wants to take a lot of education. Yeah, so that's actually, that's a good question. But it's mentioned some institutions, the reason actually and you know, you see hands all the way from service institutions to flowers. I have to study about that, so why it's Muslims look at this. So he's somebody who knows much more. He's been practicing this tradition. So again, it's also knowledge. So we always, you know, pay credits to the teacher and to the senior who is whatever